Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Roast Podcast, episode number 82. I am Brendan, and I'm alone again this week. You might notice, I also did something with my face. I shaved for a costume, which brings me to my first point. If you are listening to this on the day that it comes out, happy Halloween. And if you're listening to it later, I hope you had a good Halloween, whether or not you kind of celebrate it, or I don't think it's really so much a celebration as it is like participation, whether or not you participate, whether or not your children like participating. It's not so much for me, hasn't been for me in a long time. It's really about my kids, and I enjoy going out and seeing them, run from house to house, and they're so excited to pick up candy, which we could obviously just buy at a store, but they love the whole thing. So, all right, we are going to talk about UFC 267, Blachowicz versus Teixeira. Some exciting stuff that happened there. Possibly go over the fights. Yeah, we might talk about give a quick update for 268. Talk about some of those fights coming up. And let's get started. So, if you do like what I'm doing, if you like the UFC, if you like MMA, if you like podcasts about those things, please like and subscribe. I do this every week. I talk about the fights that are coming up, more obscure fights when the UFC is having an off week. Every so often, we'll talk about movies, and pretty soon we're going to be doing a series of podcasts on Cobra Kai, the TV show on Netflix. Right before the season 3 comes out, we're going to cover season 1 and season 2. So, all right, let's go. All right, what happened? Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. Okay, so here's what sucks about this is a lot of people were saying this, and I guess I'm echoing that. I found it hard to root for either one of the guys or root against either one of them. Like, they're both such good guys, and they've both worked so hard, and it's just crazy. It really is. Like, the talk about Jan Blachowicz when he won the championship initially was he put in like a workmanlike performance, and he's just kept grinding and working his way to the top and just never quit and blah, all those things. I don't want to say blah, 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 because it's very important and how hard he's worked to get there. But this fight, it's even more so on the Glover Teixeira side. With Glover Teixeira, like, we're talking about a guy who, how long has he been in the UFC? Okay, so the WEC, he was in the WEC, which was absorbed by the UFC, right? And effectively, all the WEC fights count as UFC fights. That's just the way it is. He was part of WEC 3 2002, All or Nothing, against Eric Schwartz. And we'll go over his record in a second, but he gets a win. I mean, we can talk about this. Glover gets in on the inside. He goes in for a lift. He lifts Blachowicz off the ground, dumps him down, takes it down easy. He spent the entire first round on top. And then in the second round, he gets on top, gets Blachowicz to flip over, and gets a rear naked choke, and he just finishes the fight right there. Blachowicz ends up tapping and losing the belt. So Glover Teixeira is now your UFC light heavyweight champion. Like, that sounds so crazy, because if you go back and remember when he fought John Jones, like, here, if you guys want to see what he did in this fight, it is really one-sided, obviously. The amount of control here, the amount of control time he had, 5+ minutes of it. There was, he made it look easy. This did not look like a close fight at all. And this is not to put Jan down or anything like that. It's just, and also I'm just excited because Glover Teixeira has just worked so hard. Look at what he's done. Do you remember when he went on this winning streak, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights in a row, beating the likes of Kyle Kingsbury, not a bad one. Fabio Maldonado, that's an okay win. Rampage. James Tahuna, again, that's a win. And then Ryan Bader. Again, that's a young Ryan Bader back in 2013, but still. Then he gets the title fight against John Jones. And just, doesn't shit the bed. It's John Jones. And he loses to Phil Davis via decision. Then he beats OSP, Patrick Cummins, Rashad Evans. and he's working his way back up to a title shot. And remember, and then that's when Anthony Johnson, who is, skyrocketing his way to a title shot himself, knocked his tooth out and almost punched his head off. Then he beats Jared Cannonier. I mean, that's a good win. And then he loses to Alexander Gustafsson. No shame in that. Misha Serkinov, he wins, loses Corey Anderson, who is now the current. He's going to be fighting for the title in Bellator. Again, not a bad loss. Or that's a good win, is what I mean. Oh no, that's not a bad loss. And then look what he's done: Carl Robertson, Ian Kutalaba, Nikita Krylov, Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Jan Blachowicz. I would argue that this is probably the best case scenario for him right here in these past 4 fights. I would say 5 fights. In the past 5 fights, he has managed to avoid some of the heavy hitters, other than Thiago Santos. But he managed to get Thiago Santos in a time where he didn't look the same, and maybe Glover Teixeira is just that good. But just what a story. At the age of 42, being the second oldest UFC champion in history, only second to Randy Couture, and winning his first championship at this time, not winning a second one, not coming back later and fighting lesser competition. And like Jan Blachowicz just beat Dominic Reyes, who many believe beat John Jones. Okay, so as far as a lot of people are concerned, like Glover Teixeira could be the lineal champ after John Jones. Right? Nobody considered DC the champ because he never beat John. Well, a lot of people thought that Reyes did. Well, if Reyes beat him, Jan made Reyes look silly, and Glover Teixeira made Jan look silly. So I know MMA math doesn't work, meaning that Reyes can come back and smoke Teixeira because their styles make fights and all. But just for a second here, this guy has been fighting in the best organizations in the world for the better part, for almost 20 years. June of 2002 was his WEC debut. 20 years it took him to get the title. In the UFC. And this is so effectively we could say he's been fighting in the UFC or UFC type talent or UFC caliber talent for 20 years before he got a title. How many other fighters in history can you even think of a similar story? Right? I can think of a couple, and they feel just as good as this one. Michael Bisping, working, and just getting an opportunity and finally nailing it, right? And then he becomes a champ. I don't know if I can think of another one. I mean, when Randy came back, it kind of felt like that, but he was already the champion a long time ago. But that was at light heavyweight. There's a lot of guys who have made long careers in the UFC. And, we just had a guy in Jim Miller, either last weekend or the weekend before, setting the record again for the most fights in the UFC. Right, and every time he fights, and like he's going for the most finishes in the UFC, and there's no shame in what he's doing, and I'm not gonna put him down. It's just this is different. For all of the times that you can say, oh, Glover Teixeira almost lost this, or oh, going into this fight, Glover Teixeira has no chance, and blah 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 blah. All of that doesn't matter anymore. The dude has just been winning consistently for the better, like, dude, he's never lost. Okay, he has lost 2 in a row, and those were to John Jones and Phil Davis. And then since then, he hasn't lost 2 in a row. Since 2014, he has not lost 2 fights in a row. So for all of us, myself included, I'm not over here saying like I always believed in Glover or I thought he was going to be the champ. But I mean, if you go back, I guarantee you at some point I do mention there's a possibility that he does get a title shot and he does make it to the championship. I did say that there was an outside chance, and this was it, right? It's just one of those things. It's light heavyweight. And what I was saying is, like, compared to Jim Miller or Cowboy Cerrone or Joe Lozon, Diego Sanchez, BJ Penn is a terrible example, but we could throw him in as well. These guys with these, like Clay Guida, these old school, old time UFC veterans, they are fighting up and comers. They're fighting some people, some other veterans, like we call it like the Masters League of MMA, Veterans League, if you want to call it that. They're different because a lot of them might have had comebacks or comeback stories, or like, Cowboy, as a dad never lost until he did, and like I'm always talking about trying to move towards a title. I'd say Cowboy is probably the closest to being similar to this. Glover Teixeira has been fighting top-tier talent for 15 years. And for the last 8 years, he's been fighting, nothing but top fivers, something like that, right? I'm sure so I know like recently there were some people outside the top five. And a lot of that was scheduling issues. Not issues, just timing, scheduling, that kind of stuff. The guy has been fighting his way to a title every single time. Never once has he been trying to collect a paycheck. Again, nothing wrong with that. Never once he's been trying to set the record of most fights in the UFC just to set the record and fighting whoever, like fighting younger up-and-comers and being a gatekeeper and being like never. Again, nothing wrong with those things. This is not to put those other fighters down. This is a man who has been working for one goal for over 20 years, and he just did not give up, didn't quit. And for most people, it wasn't even about be quitting. Their body would give out on them, whether that be due to training or bad luck, genetics, and then some of them would give up. They would get to a point where like, is it really worth it? Do I have to keep training as hard as I'm doing? Maybe I'll just do what Quentin Rampage Jackson did, was kind of like, eke out a few wins here and there, cash out on my name. Again, I sound like I'm being dismissive, but I promise I'm not being. I'm not trying to diminish what these other fighters have done. I'm just trying to separate them from what Glover has done, because this is something incredible. This is something out of a movie. This is something that you see and hear about fighters wanting and saying to people, but never being able to cash in on. The other fighters will come out and say, like, I'm always fighting for the belt. Like Clay Guida saying, like, I don't know what's for me, but I'm always looking for the title, blah, 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 blah. Like, and I'm not saying that they can't get back to there. And I honestly didn't think Glover could. Like, most of me thought that Glover was done as far as fighting for a title goes. But screw me. Like, who am I? I mean, I wasn't alone in that. A lot of people thought that. But after he beat Anthony Smith, and then he beat when he fought Thiago Santos, I thought Santos was going to knock him out. But then during the fight, I quickly changed my tune. I'm like, oh, Santos is going to get tired, and Teixeira is going to take him out. And that's what happened in the third round. A win over Carl Roberson, not a bad win, but it's it's a less experienced guy. Ian Cutelaba is a crazy person, but, Glover Teixeira ends up getting the finish. Nikita Krylov, that's a more skilled guy, but with his own issues. And then Anthony Smith, like, dude, he just ground him into the ground, or put him into the ground. Ground him beat him into the dirt. Like, you use whatever analogy or metaphor you want to use. Like, he just beat the shit out of him. Dude, I know I've been on this fight for a while. For me, this was the most important one of the night. Just because the story of how he got to the title and what he's done in his career, like, it doesn't matter if he defends it. It really doesn't. Like, he's never going to go down as the greatest light heavyweight of all time because John Jones is there. He never beat John Jones. John Jones beat everybody and was essentially undefeated, right? So he's going down as the greatest of all time as far as light heavyweight until somebody takes that title away from him, and it's not going to be Glover. He might not even be the second best because he never beat DC. And DC was in there, winning the title, defending the title. But I'll be damned, man. If it's not the feel-good story of the year, I don't know what is. This man has my vote for MMA Athlete of the Year. Like, I don't care. Like, this just doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't happen. That's like how crazy this is. Like, the story of Randy Couture coming back, like, that just doesn't happen. Same with this. This just does not happen in MMA. You don't get feel-good stories like this. You get guys with brain damage beating up their spouses or significant others. You get guys with brain damage trying to cash in on their name looking like a shell of themselves. You don't get guys who've been fighting for 20-plus years, working their way to the title, and having a dominant performance over what many consider to be like a more than competent but great challenge in Jan Blachowicz. It's something we don't get, and we were spoiled that we were all able to see it live and see it play out. And for those of you guys who've been fans of MMA for long enough to see the whole story play out, because if someone with some decent talent were to write a movie about this, it would be almost unbelievable, but it would be a great story. And I hope someone does like a 30 for 30 or a piece on Glover Teixeira, because this story needs to be documented. It needs to be repeated, because I don't know if it's going to happen again in my lifetime. Like, that's how that's what I'm saying. This does not happen. You don't feel good a lot of times watching these older fighters fight, let alone win a title. All right, let's talk about a very competitive fight in the co-main event. Peteryon versus Peteryon fighting Corey Sanhagen, getting the decision. I don't agree with some of the 49-46. I don't agree with the judges' decisions there. I believe that Corey won at least 2 of the rounds. Like, there was an argument. Like, I could see some of the judges giving him 3. I think there was a little bit of home cooking. Russia did very well, and I don't mean that in a conspiratorial way. Russia did very well because they have a lot of good fighters, and some of them are Dagestani. But anyway, there was a very big, there was a lot of fans of Russian fighters there, and I'm sure that played no small part in how this ended up getting scored. And the strikes do not tell the tale of the entire fight. Obviously, Jan immediately went to the center, but Corey was this poke and prod approach, and he was able to point him out pretty much through the first 2 rounds. I thought he won the first 2 rounds. I don't know. It's hard to say. This is a weird number here. Why is 45 less than 38 on here? The percentage is less, but he landed more. Anyway, I felt like he landed more and did more effective striking both in the first and second round. But then after that, it was all super. Third round. Oh, the second round's where he got dropped by Jan. That's why. But then the third round was real close. I might have given that to... So I probably gave the second round, because with the knockdown, I probably gave that to Jan. The third round, I probably gave it to Sanhagen. And then fourth round was clearly Jan's. Jan was landing some really big shots of his own, but then he just kept getting peppered with everything, and that's when I thought he was losing those first early rounds. But he landed that sloppy spinning back fist, and then Corey was off balance and also rocked. So but it looked a lot worse than it was. And he was able to get on top and land a little bit of damage. But Corey went away from the teep kicks and the leg kicks and the body shots, and I don't know why. He was poking really well with that kick early on, and I don't know. He just stopped doing it in the third and fourth round. He did a little bit in the fifth round, and that's what you see right here. In the fifth round, he was able to outland Jan again, and I think he did. There's an argument that he won the fifth round. I'm not making that argument. I felt like Jan did win this, right? But it was not a blowout, right? This was not a 4-1, clearly blowout fight. It was just Jan was slightly ahead in most of most interactions. He was just slightly ahead, and he put a lead. He put himself out in front. But I do believe that he won. Yeah, and see, even in the third round, Corey Sanhagen outlanded him. That's what I'm saying. I felt like it was a closer fight. But what's next? Oh, we didn't talk about what's next for Glover. So who do you think Glover should fight? I think it's going to be Yuri Prochazka. I don't see anybody else, and if Yuri can get him out of there early, Yuri can get him out of there early because he's crazy, and then he hits hard, and he's a creative striker. But let's look at what happens. Oh yeah, where does Jan Blachowicz go after this? I would have him fight someone like Alexander Rakic, maybe Anthony Smith. That'd be a fun one. Thiago Santos, we wanted to see that one. Maybe we'll get to see that one. We've already seen him fight, right? Yes. All right, so the current champion is Aljamain Sterling. This was obviously for the interim championship belt, but for all intents and purposes, it was kind of for the real belt. Anyway, because of the controversy with how Sterling got the belt, whatever, it doesn't matter. So Peteryon defeating Corey Sanhagen. So TJ Dillashaw is obviously up next for a title shot once he comes back from his surgeries and his body's all better. But what does Peteryon do now? Obviously, we want him to fight Sterling. Okay, that makes sense. But what's next for Corey Sanhagen? I think Rob Font makes sense. Jose Aldo would be a banger of a fight. Merab Dvalishvili, I think, is a weird matchup for anybody in the top 5. So I'm down for him to fight him. I mean, if you want to murder Cody Garbrandt, you could have him fight Corey Sanhagen. I thought Garbrandt was moving down, though, to flyweight. Anywho, I think Peteryon's fantastic. I think he's I think he really is the true champion. I don't have anything against Aljamain Sterling. I understand why people don't like him, especially because of his attitude after he's won and all the jokes he's made and all those things. I think that's kind of who he is as a person, and I'm not docking him for that. But if you watch that fight, you know he was winning. At the time, I said, he was disqualified. It is what it is. If you want to take the first 4 rounds leading up to that, obviously Peteryon's a much better fighter. But you have to be in control of yourself, and if you throw an illegal strike, you lose, man. Like, you cheated, you lose. That's just the way it is. Suck it up, move on, go forward. That's all. Whatever. Like, I mean, there's nothing else to talk about as far as that goes. So hopefully we get the rematch soon. Aljamain Sterling's had neck issues, but he's still been doing hard sparring, which is freaking weird. Do we even want to talk about this fight? Dan Hooker versus Islam Makhachev. Islam took him down and was able to get him in a Kimura and get the finish. Not much else to say here. Dan Hooker stepping up on relatively short notice, taking the fight so that the fight didn't get canceled because it was supposed to be against Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, there's not much to say about Dan Hooker here. I don't think this is anything against him. Islam is also a very good fighter. It's hard to take anything away from this other than Islam's good and Dan Hooker stepped up on short notice. That's all it is. This whole bit about Islam Makhachev going up to fight for the title next doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you want to look at his record, let's see who he's fought. This is what's important here. Yeah. He fought Thiago the number 15 ranked guy, and a guy who's not ranked. Davi Ramos isn't ranked either. Okay, so his last 3 fights are against the number 15 and 2 guys who aren't ranked. He's not ranked. Gleason Tebow is no longer ranked. Like, and he got knocked out by Adriano Martins back in the day in 2015. So that he does have a loss, which makes him have less of a mystique about him. Even though he's very good, obviously, it's just, and he's on a 3-fight like finishing streak. I don't think you can give him a title shot after this. It doesn't make sense, right? I wouldn't. How he's number 5 in the world, I have no idea, because he hasn't faced anybody in the top 10, let alone the top 5. But he's number 5 somehow. So a lot of that's on name. I understand he's got a long win streak going, but we've been through this with Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, and Islam Makhachev. They are the 3 most overranked people in the top 15, and I don't like. I've said this from the beginning. When people were clamoring for Charles Oliveira to get his title shot, and then everybody was bitching about how Beneil Dariush was bitching about how Oliveira was being overlooked and underrated and all this other stuff, I was like, where is the cry for Beneil Dariush? Where is the hype for Beneil Dariush? Because he has fought the exact same caliber of champions. He's on the exact same amount of win streak. He's done everything that Charles Oliveira did. Everything. Got the finishes, got the exciting stuff, blah, 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 fighting through adversity, all those things. And then he fights Tony Ferguson, and then he becomes the number 3 ranked guy, and now people get up in arms like Beneil Dariush isn't a top 5 fighter. Why? Charles Oliveira is the champ, and the only thing that made him the champion is by fighting, I would say, subpar competition until he got to Kevin Lee, which you know my feeling. If you listen to me before, you know my feelings on him. And then he gets to fight Tony Ferguson, which was a good win. Okay, I'm not going to shit on that at all, and I've said these exact words before. I would never put that win down. But that's exactly what Beneil Dariush did. So if Beneil Dariush did the exact same thing Charles Oliveira did, then he's next for the title shot. Because that's exactly how this works. Like, this is how I can tell you that the UFC is not about meritocracy. It's just not. Anyway, Islam Makhachev, the reason I bring all this up is he's on the same kind of trajectory. He has fought nobody in the top 10. He's like, other than, obviously, so he fought Dan Hooker, who's ranked number 6. But he has fought nobody else. So his best win on his entire record is Dan Hooker, and nobody else is even ranked other than Thiago Moises, but he's number 15. Okay? So he's on the same trajectory, getting to the top 5 without fighting anybody in the top 5, and now he gets to be thrown in there, and now he's going to be given a title shot. This is this exact same thing that happened with Khabib, by the way. The exact same thing. All right, let's go. Like, and this is not like, I'm not here to shit on Islam. Like, he's a fantastic fighter. He's very, very good. It's just there was a time that I remember when, like, it's not even a time. A lot of the time, you have to go through this meat grinder to get into the top 5, which includes fighting guys in the top 10. I mean, that's makes sense to me. I think it's common sense. And then somehow, somewhere along the way, we started getting these guys in the rankings. When they say, like, a lot of these fighters, they say they're hiding behind their ranking. I believe them, because some of this is bullshit. Dustin Poirier is only 4 more than Islam Makhachev, and he's been fighting only top 5 guys for the past 5-6 years. Like, same with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's been fighting the highest caliber competition possible the past 5 years. And, I mean, 4 years, really, but it doesn't matter. And he was ranked behind Islam Makhachev before this weekend? How? Because he's lost a couple times? Because he lost to Michael Chandler, who fought for the title when he first came in, like, after his first fight? Like, get out of here. Anyway, I think, speaking of that, Dan Hooker needs to fight somebody. Let's give him, not a break, but let's have him fight somebody in the lower rankings, right? Arman Tsarukyan, Brad Riddell. He's not going to fight him. They're kind of teammates. Diego Ferreira. Gregor Gillespie would be a fun fight. That's a good one. Why don't we do that? Gregor Gillespie has 1 loss on his record, and let's have him fight Dan Hooker. See if Dan Hooker can improve his wrestling before the next time they fight. And let's get Gregor up there. Like, have him versus Islam makes sense. Remember, everybody wanted to see Gregor versus Khabib, but Khabib disappeared too fast. That's why he's not the greatest of all time, because he didn't stick around long enough. He took off before everybody was able to challenge him. All right. Okay, we had Alexander Volkov taking on Marcin Tybura. So this is a heavyweight fight. Volkov just looked a step ahead the entire time. Volkov, he didn't keep his distance, and it's really scary because he's so long. It's just he doesn't move his head enough, and he moves very slow. It's just how he's always fought. And then Tybura, like, he shot in early on a takedown, and fucking Volkov just pushed him backwards and landed on top of him. Like, Tybura attempted like 13 or how many takedowns did he attempt? 16. He attempted 16 takedowns and landed 0 of them. Yeah. Tybura like with the pressure and scoring points in the second, but I think in the third round, there's a lot of combos from Volkov. I thought he was tired, but he did enough in the third round to win it. So he outlanded him in every round, but oh no, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't. Yeah, he got outlanded. Marcin landed more in the second round. That's what I thought. I write it in my notes, and then I go back on myself when I take a quick look at the statistics. What's the point of me taking notes while I'm watching fights if I'm not going to frickin' believe them when I see them? So dumb. All right, let's look at these rankings, shall we? At heavyweight here. Where does Volkov go from here? He's already fought Blades. He's already fought Lewis. He has not fought Miocic. He's already fought Gan. Dude, Volkov has fought everybody. Like, he's fought the best of the best. I mean, I don't want to see him versus Rosenstruck. I don't think Rosenstruck has earned that. Daukaus makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. They fought. Daukaus fought recently. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that Volkov has to fight someone who's ranked below him, but it makes sense. Yeah, I would do that. As far as Tybura, he's probably going to take a couple steps down. Not much else to say on that one. All right, so here was a cool one. Khamzat Chimaev versus Li Jingliang. Dude, Chimaev literally picks him up, and then slams him in front of Dana White while he was holding Lee. He was talking to Dana, and then he like slams him down, and then he eventually gets a rear naked choke. He had to work for it, but he got the rear naked choke, and he put him to sleep. Lee did not tap out. He put him to sleep. So if you want to look at this, so he has shut out 3 people in the UFC. Khamzat has. Lee landed exactly 0 punches. So, cool. Oh, this is weird. You can tell that their system is broken because when it says 0, it automatically starts with a third everywhere. So it does not account for 0. Probably because it doesn't have to, because it happens so rarely. Look at that. He broke their goddamn website. Oh, man. Yeah, Khamzat Chimaev is crazy. Shit, I don't know. What are you going to do with him? I mean, you're going to put him in the top 10. I would imagine he gets thrown into the top 10 and he fights one more person in the top 10, and then he probably gets a title shot at whoever's got the title, whether it's Usman or Covington. Most likely Usman, but we'll see. And Chimaev's a problem. Chimaev versus Usman makes sense. Like, if Usman wants to earn the title of greatest of all time at welterweight, he's got to take on Chimaev at some point. Because on the trajectory that he's currently on, he's got to. Let's see what happens. But a lot of these other fighters in here, he's already fought or have been taking each other out. If Chimaev comes in and smokes one of them, like, you gotta run that. You gotta run it now before Usman gets older. Yeah, because there can't be excuses on his side, and there can't be this whole thing where Chimaev comes in and like smokes like an elderly Usman. Let's say Volkan Oezdemir versus Magomed Ankalaev. Not a close fight. Ankalaev pretty much dominating the entire thing. Oezdemir with forward pressure and landing with good 1s and 2s early, but Ankalaev kind of picked up on it and was able to drop him with a straight left, but the Volkan got right back up and just kept getting punished. He got I mean, he did outland him, I guess, in the second, but Volkan just kept getting, I guess the bigger, more impactful shots just kept coming back his way. And then the second round, he ended up getting a cut right above his left eye, and the fight didn't get stopped. Nobody looked at it, so we're all good. And then Volkan found some success with kicks in the last couple minutes of the second round, but then Ankalaev shot for a takedown. And then Ankalaev was taking the center and pressuring forward, pretty much trading spots with Özdemir the entire time and not letting him control anything. So Ankalaev looks really good. He's a pretty scary talent at light heavyweight. We'll see how that turns out for him going forward because, again, light heavyweight is pretty once you move in there, it only takes 2 wins and you can move in. He was number 7 and he just fought number 8. One more win. There might be a little bit of a logjam now just because of some of the wins that people have been on, but he fights Dominic Reyes or Alexander Rakic or Jan Blachowicz or whatever. And that's it. Title shot after that. No more breaks. No more easy wins. Amanda Ribas versus Virna Jandiroba. Amanda Ribas just outworking her, getting more strikes in, which is pretty crazy because Ribas has got kind of shell-shocked in her last fight, and it's nice to see her bounce back. She does have that win over Mackenzie Dern. So, she put a stop to that hype train, but then that hype train kept moving. And then she lost to Marina Rodriguez, who ended up beating Mackenzie Dern as well. So that's the one who can, she can hit hard. So no shame in losing her. But Amanda Ribas is just, you just feel good for her because she's so happy all the time. Anyway, it wasn't the most exciting fight of the night. Duryev versus Kopylov. I'm not scraping the bottom of the barrel here. It's just a lot of these fights I didn't take notes for. It's kind of busy. Also, I kind of got to get going. We got to watch Halloween movies. Yeah, that fight was weird. Kopylov, let's see here. Kopylov got outstruck, but he was landing more. He did a ton in the last round, and the way he was landing damage and he kept moving forward, the first round was close. Second round, the fight almost could have been stopped, and Kopylov, he had a busted up nose, and the fight could have been over. But the third round, I felt could have gone to him. There was somebody who gave all 3 rounds to Duryev, which, that's what I'm saying about, is he Russian? Hold on. Before I speak out of turn, let's look it up. But anyway, that's what I'm saying about Russian fighters. A lot of the Ankalaev Russian, Volkov Russian. Duryev Russian. Right? There was a lot of Russian fighters on the card, but all of them got wins in that's what I'm saying, 30-27. I definitely didn't give him that last round, but that's what I'm saying is they were getting very favorable judging. So, all right. Let's talk about some of the biggest controversy from this night, and that occurred during this fight. Benoit Saint Denis. I know that's not his name. It's Benoit Saint Denis, right? So during this fight, I mean, we can look at the stats, but that's not important. What's important is if you want to go back and watch some of the worst reffing in history. Now, we're talking Steve Mazzagatti, Mario Yamasaki levels of incompetence. We're talking about a guy taking way too much damage, and most of it to the head. 149 strikes. 64% of that to the head. Okay? You want to do the math on that, you're more than welcome. Oh, you don't need to. It's right here. A 96. 96 strikes. Significant strikes to the head. Okay? Total strikes, 167. So most of his strikes were significant strikes, by the way. And he landed most of those to the head. the guy should have been out in the first round, and then he should have been out in the second round. He could have stopped it multiple times, but Saint Denis just did not want to. He broke his nose. Dos Santos pretty much doing whatever he wanted in there, and he just didn't get the stoppage. And then Saint Denis needs to be he needs to be given some time off and some really I hope he got like a really good medical attention. But this guy, Vyacheslav Kiselev, right? This fucking guy, dude. He watched him get poked in the eye. He stops the fight and says, "Are you good? Can you see?" And he's like, "I can't see out of my eye." And he's like, "Are you good? Can you see?" And the guy's like, "I can't." Saint Denis says, "I can't see out of my eye." And he's like, "Okay, are you ready?" Like, what the fuck? Dude, there was a cut. They didn't stop for that. He kicked him in the nuts. There was no stop for that. Like, there was barely any stoppage for that. And he didn't even bring in the doctor when the guy got poked in the eye and couldn't see. And he said, "I couldn't see." Like, Saint Denis' corner, I'd put a little bit, obviously, a blame here because they could have thrown in the towel at any point. I don't put any blame on Saint Denis. He went in there and he wanted to work as hard as he could. He never gave up completely. Obviously, he had those moments where you could tell he was broke and he's just like, "I don't want to continue anymore." But the ref wasn't stopping it, so he continued to defend himself, and that's, how you keep the fight going even more. And obviously, because this fucking referee is totally incompetent, he didn't stop the fight. So this referee was pulled from the rest of the fights that he was supposed to do the rest of the night. Thank God. This guy should never ref a fight ever again, especially when it comes to the UFC. And I hope that Saint Denis is compensated some way other than just medical attention for the amount of damage that he was taking due to the level of incompetence from this commission. Fuck Abu Dhabi. Fuck you guys. You guys should not have given this guy a job. I understand other bad things have happened in the past, but this is criminal. I don't know who the fuck gave this guy a license. Makes no sense. And plus, I don't know if he spoke the language of the people in there. Obviously, that's not always the case anyway. There's a lot of referees who only speak English. Some might only speak Portuguese or whatever. And then the fighters are, there's 2 Brazilian fighters who only speak Portuguese. And, me as the ref, I only speak English, so I communicate as best I can. So I'm not going to criticize him for not being able to speak English. I don't know if he could, but it didn't look like he was speaking much or communicating much with the people in there. And I don't know. I have no idea what the fuck was going on, but it was unacceptable and disgusting. Jeez, that was gross. Okay. So, enough of that. Enough of the negativity. Let's talk about next weekend, shall we? All right, next weekend we have Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. Obviously running it back, and they're both guys going on wins, or have gotten wins since they fought last time. Colby Covington obviously beating Tyron Woodley, and Kamaru Usman beating Jorge Masvidal twice. Whatever. Colby Covington had a chance in the first fight to win. I believe Usman played the game really well. He's a very smart fighter. He has a very good fight IQ. He plays the game as well. Okay. Again, this is not me shitting on Kamaru Usman here. I'm just pointing out things that happen. Okay, pointing out observations. Kamaru Usman is a very skilled fighter. When he has combined his skills with his raw talent and skills with Trevor Whitman's coaching, he has become like almost an unbeatable force. But also, he's not stupid. In the Colby Covington fight, there was an eye poke that wasn't an eye poke, and there was a nut shot that wasn't a nut shot. But he played both of those and got a break for them. Okay? When he fought Gilbert Burns and got dropped, Gilbert ended up throwing a kick and falling off balance, and Usman held a foot of Burns and kicked him in the butt for upwards of 45 seconds to a minute. Okay? Again, playing the game, because if he doesn't do anything, the fight gets stood up. And if he goes to the ground with Burns, he might get caught in something. So he does just enough by kicking him in the butt to keep the position where it is. It's not going to end the fight. You're not going to end the fight via butt strikes. Okay? But he was able to do enough to keep it there while he recovered. Okay, so he's not stupid. The foot stomps against Jorge Masvidal, after he was caught, on his way in against him. Like, he was being outstruck in that first matchup. Given all those parameters and what we've seen from Colby Covington, how does Colby beat Usman now? They pretty much went 1-for-1. Like, I think Colby was up in the first matchup, like 3-1 on two of the judges' scorecards, or at least one of them. Maybe it was 2-2 on the other two or something like that. I don't remember. What's important is it was very close. Okay, Colby Covington was either ahead by a little or behind by a little on everybody's scorecard and everybody's opinions. Okay, it's just on the power matchup, he just fell short and he just couldn't take the damage and his jaw got broken. So eventually his body just broke down. His will didn't, and he wanted to continue, but he got sat down in the last round, and then I think it was Mark Goddard who called the fight. Rightfully so, whatever, it's fine. How does Covington, what does he do to improve? Like, he's not going to improve his power because that goes away from everything that he does. He's a volume guy who just out-pressures him. He did 0 wrestling in the first matchup because they're both good wrestlers, so maybe he could go there. But how does he beat Usman now? Because Usman's gotten better. Usman's a better striker than he was the first time. Trevor Whitman's a freaking genius. Like, yes, his fighters don't all have the best records, but they've got a pretty good one, and he currently has 2 champions working with him. 3 when Justin Gaethje was the interim champ. And you talk about, like, Justin Gaethje fighting Khabib. Like, Khabib did not like what was going on the feet. Like, he wanted to get it to the ground faster than usual. So you want to talk about, like, possible paths to victory for Colby Covington. How does he do it? I guess he could outwork him, but Usman's got a crazy gas tank. I guess he can go for takedowns, but Usman's got a crazy wrestling game. I guess he could try to outstrike him, but Usman's been shown to improve his striking, and he's got the power advantage. I just don't see how Covington wins this. I don't. I could be totally wrong. I could, Obviously, it's MMA. Anything could happen. Covington could come out and just absolutely destroy him. Usman could have a bad day. Whatever. So I could be totally wrong on this. Maybe Covington's done some secret stuff, and he's going to come back way better than we've ever seen him before. It's just from what I've seen from Covington, I don't know how he makes the leap to be that much better than Usman. Because if it's a close fight, I mean, that's a 50. Now we're talking about what we saw the first time, and it's a 50-50. If he does that for 5 rounds and they go 50-50, he could be losing a split decision or winning a split decision based off of whose eyes are on that fight at any given time. So I just don't see how he wins. All right? Best case scenario, I say he's 50-50 with him again, and then, like I said, like, he could win that, but now we're talking about 50-50, which is a coin flip. So best case scenario, it's a coin flip for him. Worst case scenario, he's utterly dominated. So you shift those odds over, and you're talking about, like, for me, like, it's 70-30 for Usman. Rose Namajunas taking Zhang Weili. Obviously, Namajunas got the knockout in the first fight. I know Namajunas has cardio issues, and she tends to go later. She tends to have cardio issues later in the fights. Not so bad that she can't do it, like she can't continue to fight or anything like that, but her movement and her skills kind of like it happened in the Andrade fight the second time they fought. She clearly beat her and was the better fighter, but as she got tired, Andrade was able to just push forward. So if Zhang can break her down and avoid some of those bigger shots early on, she might be able to outpoint Namajunas and break her down in the later rounds or just get a decision win. So the first 2 rounds are going to be really important because if Namajunas can get a lead and then sit on it and, eke out one of the last 3 rounds, I think it's an easy repeat win for Rose. But if Weili can break her down, I still favor Rose because she's got the power advantage and she's got the striking advantage. She's also she's a tricky grappler. So anything could happen, but I would be leaning toward Rose, probably about 60-40. Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. This is absolute insanity. This is my favorite fight of the year so far. 2 of the guys I really love, and Justin Gaethje, who is currently my favorite fighter in MMA. I'm really excited. I am rooting for Gaethje. Like I said, he's my favorite fighter. I refuse to root against him ever. It's my favorite pick of all time. Like, I pick him always. It's just ever since he's come to the UFC. Before he came to the UFC, I've talked about this before. He's one of the fighters who I followed earlier in his professional career. I didn't know him when he was a kid, right? I didn't know him coming up in the amateur scene, but I caught him before he came to the UFC. And like Marlon Moraes, I followed him before he came to the UFC as well. And we saw kind of what happened there, but I would argue that he's done fine. But Justin Gaethje is just, dude, he hasn't changed completely who he is, but working with Trevor Whitman and finally listening to him, he's gotten a lot better. And I think he can beat Chandler. I really do. I know Chandler comes out strong and he comes out fast. It's just Gaethje's tough. He's durable, and those leg kicks break you down, man. It's really going to be like, who's going to give in to the other person first? I think the first person to take a back step is the person who's able to stay on be the aggressor more of the fight is probably going to end up winning. But I would still favor Gaethje, even if he was fighting off his back foot, just because I think he's a more technical striker. And he's got more stuff in the pocket than Chandler does. I think Chandler throws a lot of good hooks, and he's got a lot of big shots, but Gaethje can throw some really tight, neat like leg kicks and stuff. He can throw a lot of stuff. So anyway, Shane Burgos versus Billy Quarantillo, that's fun. Frankie Edgar versus Marlon Vera. Alex Pereira versus it's Alex Pereira? Andreas Michailidis? Ali Quinta versus Bobby Green. Finally, Ali Quinta fighting again. Shabazian. Dude, next weekend is also a banger. Chris Curtis versus Phil Hawes. All right, that's it. We're going to call it there. I'm going to go watch some movies with the girls. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I've had really good discussions with people about MMA recently. I've had some decent feedback. I understand that people like the new setup. They like when we do the split screen, and they like when I'm putting out information instead of just seeing my face the whole time. So I appreciate the feedback from those of you guys who are giving it to me. And it means a lot to me. Happy Halloween. I hope everyone has an awesome week. I love y'all. Later.